The invitation arrived 3 weeks before my 24th birthday. Thick cream cardstock, gold embossed lettering, the kind of formality my parents reserved for weddings and funerals. A celebration of Selene, it read, and beneath it, a guest list I hadn't approved. 100 relatives I barely knew, gathering in a hotel ballroom downtown. My mother called it a milestone event. I should have recognized it for what it really was, a stage. Before I tell you what happened when those ballroom doors opened, tell me, where are you watching from? And have you ever felt celebrated in a way that didn't actually feel like celebration at all? I didn't grow up thinking my parents disliked me. If anything, I spent most of my childhood trying to decode a language they spoke fluently with my older brother Marcus, but never quite translated for me. He was the golden child, athletic, charismatic, the son who made my father's eyes light up during Sunday dinners. I was the one who got good grades, kept my room clean, and learned early that quiet competence earned you less attention than loud confidence. By the time I turned 18, the pattern was undeniable. Marcus got a car for graduation. I got a card with a $50 bill tucked inside and a note that said, "Proud of you, use this wisely." When he dropped out of his second college attempt, my parents threw him a welcome home party. When I graduated summa cum laude, they sent flowers to my apartment with a message, "Sorry we couldn't make it." Work was busy. The years that followed taught me to lower my expectations. I moved to Seattle, built a career in graphic design, made friends who felt more like family than the people who shared my last name. I called home on holidays, visited twice a year, and accepted that some relationships exist in maintenance mode rather than growth. Then the invitation arrived. My mother's voice on the phone was bright, almost manic. "Selene, darling, we're throwing you the party you deserve. 24 is such an important age. We want everyone to see how proud we are." Something in my chest tightened, but I ignored it. Maybe this was the turning point. Maybe they'd finally decided I mattered. I RSVP'd yes, bought a dress I couldn't afford, and let myself hope for the first time in years. The 3 weeks leading up to the party felt surreal. My mother called daily with updates. The caterer, the photographer, the seating arrangements. She asked about my dress, my hair, whether I wanted a specific cake flavor. It felt like care, or at least a convincing performance of it. Marcus called once, his tone casual. "Big party, huh? Mom's going all out." I laughed. "I know. It's kind of overwhelming." "Yeah," he said, and something in that single word felt weighted. "Just be ready for anything, okay?" I didn't understand what he meant. Not then. My best friend Tessa helped me get ready the night of the party. She curled my hair in loose waves, helped me zip up the midnight blue dress I'd chosen, the one that made me feel elegant instead of invisible. "You look stunning," she said, squeezing my shoulders. "This is your night." I stared at my reflection, trying to recognize the woman looking back. Hopeful, nervous, guarded. I'd spent so long protecting myself from disappointment that letting hope in felt dangerous. The hotel ballroom was more extravagant than I'd imagined. Crystal chandeliers, white linen tablecloths, centerpieces that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Relatives I hadn't seen in years milled around, wine glasses in hand, voices echoing off the high ceilings. My mother stood near the entrance in a burgundy gown, greeting guests like a hostess at a gala. My father lingered beside her, tall and composed, the picture of distinguished authority. Marcus slouched near the bar, already nursing a drink, his expression unreadable. When my mother saw me, her face lit up with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. There she is, the guest of honor. She kissed my cheek, her perfume overwhelming. "Come, everyone's dying to see you." She led me through the crowd, introducing me to cousins, aunts, uncles I barely remembered. They smiled politely, offered generic congratulations, then returned to their conversations. I felt like an exhibit rather than a person. Something to be displayed, not celebrated. Dinner began with the kind of choreographed precision my mother excelled at. Waiters appeared with salads, then entrees, then desserts I hadn't chosen. Speeches started between courses. My Uncle Richard stood first, sharing a rambling story about my childhood that I didn't remember and suspected he'd invented. My Aunt Clara followed, talking mostly about her own daughter's recent engagement. Then my father stood. The room quieted. He cleared his throat, adjusted his tie, the familiar gestures of a man preparing to deliver something important. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice carrying easily across the ballroom. "We've gathered to celebrate Selene's birthday, but more than that, to address something that's been on our minds for quite some time." My stomach dropped. The air in the room shifted, tension replacing the polite warmth. "Selene," he continued, turning to face me directly. "You've always been different from the rest of the family. Quiet, independent, distant." He paused, letting the words settle like stones. "And while we've tried to understand you, to include you, to make you feel like you belong, the truth is, we've come to realize something important." My hands gripped the edge of the table. Around me, relatives leaned forward, eyes glinting with curiosity. My mother sat perfectly still, her expression serene. Marcus stared into his drink. "The truth is," my father said slowly, "we've decided it's time to be honest with you, and with everyone here. You're not the daughter we hoped you'd become." The words hit like a physical blow. Not the daughter we hoped you'd become. The ballroom felt suddenly airless. My father continued, his tone measured, almost clinical. "We've provided for you, supported you, given you every opportunity. But you've chosen a path that distances you from this family. You don't visit often. You don't share your life with us. You've built a world that doesn't include us, and frankly, we're tired of pretending that's acceptable." My mother stood then, joining him. Her voice was softer, but no less cutting. "We wanted tonight to be a chance to bring you back into the fold, Selene. To remind you what family means. But it's become clear that you've made your choice. And so we've made ours." She glanced around the room, addressing the audience now rather than me. "We've decided to formally acknowledge what's been true for years. Selene has removed herself from this family in all the ways that matter. And tonight, we're simply making that official." The silence that followed was suffocating. 100 relatives stared at me, some with pity, some with judgment, some with the uncomfortable fascination of people watching a car crash. I should have cried. I should have shouted. Instead, I felt something cold and sharp settle into my chest. Clarity. This wasn't about me failing them. This was about control. About punishing me for building a life they couldn't dictate. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the polished floor. Every eye followed me. My mother's expression flickered with surprise. She'd expected tears, collapse, public humiliation that would validate their narrative. Instead, I straightened my shoulders and met my father's gaze. "You're right," I said quietly, my voice steady. "I have chosen a different path. I chose to build a life where my worth isn't measured by how well I perform the version of myself you wanted. I chose to surround myself with people who celebrate who I am, not who they wish I'd become." My mother's jaw tightened. My father's eyes narrowed. I continued, speaking not just to them but to the room. "You've spent my entire life making me feel like I wasn't enough. Not loud enough, not social enough, not like Marcus enough. And I spent years believing that was my failure. That if I just tried harder, loved better, showed up more perfectly, you'd finally see me." I turned to face the crowd, these relatives who'd traveled to witness what my parents thought would be my public rejection. But here's what I've learned. You can't earn love from people who've already decided you're not worth it. And you shouldn't have to. My voice grew stronger. So yes, I've distanced myself. Because distance was the only way to survive. Because every time I came home, I left feeling smaller. Because you've made it clear over and over that unless I fit the mold you created for me, I don't belong here. My mother stood abruptly. "Selene, that's enough." "No," I said firmly. "It's not. You planned this entire evening to humiliate me. To publicly reject me in front of everyone we know. To make your disappointment official. So let me make something official too." I reached into my purse and pulled out a folded document, something I'd prepared weeks ago, long before this invitation arrived. Some part of me had known this moment was coming. "This," I said, holding it up, "is a formal statement declining any claim to the family estate, the family business, anything you think gives you leverage over me. My father's face paled. My mother's mouth opened, then closed. I don't want your money. I don't want your approval. I don't want to spend another minute of my life trying to earn something you were never planning to give. I set the document on the table. You wanted to make this official? Congratulations. It's official. I'm done. The silence in the ballroom was absolute. Not even the waiters moved. Then, from the back of the room, slow, deliberate clapping began. I turned to see Marcus standing, his expression a mixture of pride and pain. He walked toward me, still clapping, and when he reached my side, he said loud enough for everyone to hear, "About damn time." He turned to face our parents. "I've watched you do this to her for years. Ignore her achievements, dismiss her choices, make her feel like she was never good enough. And I stayed quiet because it was easier. Because I was the one who benefited." His voice cracked slightly. "But I'm done too. If she's out, so am I." My mother's composure finally shattered. "Marcus, you don't mean that." "I do," he said firmly. "Selene's the best person in this family, and you've spent her entire life punishing her for it." He looked at me. "I'm sorry I didn't say this sooner." Something in my chest loosened, just slightly. Around the ballroom, relatives began to murmur. Some stood, gathering their things, uncomfortable with the scene unfolding. Others stayed, transfixed. My Aunt Helena, my mother's younger sister, approached our table. She'd always been kind to me in small, quiet ways. "Your mother called me last week," she said softly, looking at me. "She told me about tonight's plan. I came because I wanted to see if she'd really go through with it." She turned to my parents, her expression sad. "I'm ashamed of you both." She placed a hand on my shoulder. "You've always been welcome in my home, Selene. And you always will be." 3 more relatives followed her lead. My cousin James. My uncle Peter. My grandmother, who I hadn't even known was there, leaning on her cane as she shuffled toward me. "Proud of you, girl," she whispered, patting my hand. Took guts. The exodus began. Not everyone left, some stayed loyal to my parents, but enough people walked out that the ballroom suddenly felt cavernous and empty. My parents stood frozen, their perfect plan collapsing around them. My father tried to regain control. "This is ridiculous. Everyone, please sit down. This is simply a family matter." But his voice lacked conviction. The authority he'd always wielded so effortlessly had evaporated. My mother turned to me, her expression a mixture of fury and desperation. "You've ruined everything." "No," I said quietly. "I just refuse to let you ruin me." I picked up my purse, took Marcus's arm, and walked toward the exit. As we passed through the ballroom doors, I heard my mother's voice behind us, shrill and breaking. "Selene. Selene, come back here right now." I didn't turn around. Outside, the night air was cool and clean. Marcus and I stood on the hotel steps, the city lights stretching out before us. "I didn't think you'd actually do it," he said, his voice filled with something like awe. "Neither did I admitted. Not until I was standing there, and I realized I had nothing left to lose." He laughed, short and bitter. "God, we're a mess." "We are," I agreed. "But at least now we're a mess on our own terms." The days that followed felt both lighter and heavier. My phone buzzed with messages, some from relatives offering support, others from my parents' friends condemning my outburst. I blocked the ones that didn't matter and kept the ones that did. My mother tried calling 17 times in the first week. I didn't answer. My father sent a single email. "When you're ready to apologize and rejoin this family, we'll consider it." I deleted it without responding. Marcus and I met for coffee a week later. He'd moved out of our parents' house, crashing with a friend while he figured things out. "They're telling everyone we're going through phases," he said, stirring sugar into his cup. "That will come crawling back. Will you?" I asked. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the boy who used to protect me from bullies on the playground, before the weight of being the favorite had twisted him into someone else. "No," he said firmly. "I'm done being their puppet." We sat in comfortable silence, 2 people finally free from a performance that had exhausted us both. 3 months later, I moved to Portland. A fresh start, a city where my last name didn't carry expectations I couldn't meet. I rented a small apartment with hardwood floors and windows that let in morning light. I adopted a cat, made new friends, took up painting. For the first time in my life, I woke up without the weight of disappointment pressing down on my chest. My grandmother called occasionally, updating me on family news I no longer needed but appreciated hearing. "Your mother tells people you're finding yourself," she said during one call, her tone dry with amusement. "Let her think whatever she needs to think," I replied. "I already found myself. That's why I left." She laughed, warm and genuine. Smart girl. On my 25th birthday, Tessa threw me a small party. Just 6 people, pizza, cheap wine, a cake with frosting that read, "Congrats on surviving another year." It was perfect. No speeches, no performances, no hidden agendas. Just people who loved me for exactly who I was. That night, as I blew out the candles, I didn't wish for my parents to change. I didn't wish for reconciliation or understanding. I wished for continued strength to build the life I deserved, surrounded by people who chose me without conditions. Looking back, that ballroom moment wasn't when I lost my family. It was when I finally stopped losing myself. Some families are bound by love. Others are bound by obligation, expectation, and the fear of disappointing people who were disappointed in you from the start. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from the second kind and build the first kind yourself. If you've ever had to choose yourself over the people who were supposed to choose you first, you're not alone. Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, subscribe for more stories about finding strength in the hardest moments. Sometimes rejection isn't the end. It's the beginning of finally becoming who you were always meant to be.